Hi, I'm John, and this is the box for the new, highly anticipated Blood of Saiyans Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Why the box and not the figure? Well, I was so excited to work on this that I forgot to record the footage. I was so hyped for this figure that I imported it from Japan instead of waiting for it to release in the US. The sculpt is great, but I wanted to overhaul the paint to match his manga colors and added some much needed shading. And as much as I love the metallic gold hair, I wanted to make it more traditional yellow gold color. So let's go. First, I had to make some carrot soup. After letting it sit in the hot water for a bit and about 40 minutes of struggle, I was able to get the figure apart. Next up, I had to prime the figure. This time around, I'm using the Color Army Painter Primer in gray, and I really recommend it. You can find this and everything else I'm using in the video linked in the description below as Amazon affiliate links. If you do purchase anything on Amazon through those links, it'll help me and the channel out with no cost to you. Oh, and don't forget to drop a thumbs up on my video if you like my work. It'll help me out a lot too. Thanks! Alrighty, now that I finished up with that, it's time to start base coating the figure, starting with Goku's gi. I painted the entire gi using a mix of clear orange and Beasty brown. This time around, I intended on having a much deeper shading to give the impression of him glowing from his aura, so my base coats are going to be a little bit darker than usual. Next up, I painted on the lines of his boots. In the manga, the lines are actually white, which I'm a bit iffy about. I usually prefer the red or yellow, but I tried to be faithful to the source material. Then I started to base coat the blue parts of his outfit, starting with the boot using a mix of royal blue and black. The reason why I started with the white lines instead of the blue parts first is that it's so much easier to paint blue over the white rather than the other way around. Then I continued up the body by painting the belt and the sections of his undershirt. Moving up to the head, I started by painting in his eyes, simply because I had some leftover white paint out while painting his boots earlier. Then I moved on to his lion's mane of a hairdo. I mixed together some deep yellow and yellow ochre to really give it that golden yellow look. I really wish I had an airbrush for this kind of work because all these nooks and crannies took so much time, especially since I had to put on multiple coats. For the last of the base coats, I painted on his skin, using a mix of dark flesh and some salmon brown. I always like to base coat the skin with a little bit of pink tone because it sort of comes through as blood sitting underneath the skin when adding in those lighter tones. Speaking of lighter tones, it was time to start adding in the highlights. I started with his face this time, and since in my last video I said, because even my smallest dry brush is a little big, I went ahead and bought a smaller dry brush, and honestly, I really love it. It's the perfect size and way higher quality than my other dry brushes. You'll see me using this throughout the rest of the videos because I like it so much. I continued adding on highlights to the rest of his skin using some flat flesh. Next up, I added some highlights to his hair using a mix of yellow ochre, lemon yellow, and some white. This was incredibly satisfying to do since the way his hair was sculpted allowed for opportunities for both the highlights and shading to really shine through. Then I went ahead and added the highlights to his gi using a mix of orange fire and lemon yellow, starting with his pants, and then making my way up to his shirt. While mixing the paint to try to match the correct shade of orange to the source material, I noticed that there were some white lines at the edge of his gi, sort of adding to that glowing effect. So I decided to try to replicate that aura, but instead of using some straight up white, I decided to add a lighter shade of yellow and orange to the highest raised folds of his gi using my new small dry brush. I think this really added some much needed impact to the shading, so I went back to the hair to add the brighter highlights there as well. Again, using my small dry brush, I went in and added the highlights along the sharp edges and tips of the hair. I really like the way the three-tone shading turned out on the Super Saiyan hair, and I think it's something I want to carry forward to future Super Saiyan repaints. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I also went ahead and dry brushed an even lighter accent color on his skin using some basic skin tone. I tried to focus on some of the highest points of his skin, including the eyebrows, cheekbones, nose, ear tips, and other high points of his chest, as well as his arms. Next, I added highlights to the blue section of his outfit using some white and royal blue. Since I already figured out to use the three-tone shading here, after adding in the first layer of highlights to showcase the shadow, I added in a second level of highlights using a lighter mix of white and blue to showcase the raised folds. After finished adding highlights to the boots, I painted in the laces of his boots using some flat red. After painting these in, along with all the extra shading I did, I came around to liking the white lines on his boots. What do you think? Then I painted in the soles of his shoes using some Cork brown. If I'm being honest, I won't really shade in this part since it'll be covered later on anyway. Moving on to the finer details, I painted in his eyes using some blue-green and some flow improver. Then I added in his pupils using some black and added in a little white dot at the edge of each iris to give the eyes a little extra life. I know it's not really manga accurate, but hey, it's something I like to do. Then it was time to pull out the Tamiya panel liners to give the face that extra impact. I used some brown to line his eyes and add in some wrinkles along his eyebrows and his mouth. Then I used some pink-brown panel liner along his ears, under his lip, and along the rest of the lines of his musculature and hands to add in some extra line work. Next, along his gi, I used some brown panel liner along the deepest folds of his pants and his shirt. Lastly, for the boot laces, I wanted to add some shading there, so I used some dark brown panel liner to give the effect of some line work. Then I went in with some Tamiya X20 thinner to clean up all of my lines. Lastly, I went ahead and sealed in all of the paint using some matte Krylon clear coat. I don't always clear coat my figures, but I thought that after this paint job I gave it, it really deserved to have that extra premium look with a matte finish. After that dried, all that was left was to put it back together. And that's it. Here's what it looked like before. And here's the final result. This took a lot of effort, but I think it was worth it. This figure is already a standout figure in the crane figure space right now, and it was begging for a repaint. And not to toot my own horn, but I really like how the extra layer of highlights ended up coming out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Of course, special thanks to my members. Something new that I wanted to announce here, I just launched my membership on YouTube. If you want progress photos while I'm working on a figure instead of waiting for the final video, as well as a bunch of other little features, check it out. Membership is also still available on buymeacoffee.com with all of the same perks. And again, everything I use in this video is listed in the description below as Amazon affiliate links. If you like what you saw, leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.